Nnamdi na-enwere ego na-eme Chukwu Olisezanụ ebele Chinwe akwụ nwa ogbenye n'elu galuwe Chukwu n'ime mmiri otu osisi Chukwu akwụkwọ nsọ ya ka mmụ dị eje Chinwe iri pụrụ ka mmụ na mwetigwekwe ume ewuchi mwetigwekwe ume ewuchi Chukwu bịale n'ọkwa chi na-emeze ebe ụwa na-esi na chi ọkwa mmadụ nwobili bụ abịagokwe bịale n'ọkwa chi na-emeze ego Oyemụba si na chi ehihie ewume ewuchi Chukwu ụmụ obili gwa abịa egwu Chukwu gọziri agọzi ihe okokoko ihe akụ nwa bọrọ mmụ na-ebe ihe okwu ọsọ nwanne m na-ebe ihe mmadụ emegbu na mmadụ ibe ya maka na ọ bụ chi na-enye ego ịnụgo oyi ụwa mmụọ onye nwechie ụwa mmụọ onye nwechie na onye imegbula emegbu nwekwere ike imesi wee kasịa ụwa mmụọ ka m na-ebe ihe mmegbu anaeze nwanne m ebe onye ga-abụ nwanne n'ọkwa nya ga-emelili mwetigwekwe ume ewuchi mwakpọkwakwo Olise kele ụwa ya Chukwu obejili odogwu ka m na-ebe ịgba m ekwukwekwe onye nwechie ihe onye nwere ego bigo cheta nwanne gị mugo ịmakwa n'ụba si na chi ehihie egwu ụwa n'ọkwa chi na-enye ahịa ogogogogo ahịa ogogogo.
Okay, good evening. Good morning to some of us, and also good afternoon to some of us also whose time frame falls within afternoon and morning hours. From me here, it is evening. We just came out from a short broadcast from a member of the DOS, Mazi Chinasa, and we are here once again to tackle a developing stories. I am Mazichika Austin, and I believe we all are getting me loud and clear. And in lieu for that, while I will be waiting for our responses as regards if we are receiving me loud and clear, I would use this opportunity to also let us understand the event of tomorrow, that tomorrow is a sit-at home, a solidarity sit at home for the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, who have stood the ground for us in all ramification. Very, very important. It's also important to share this program. Very, very important you share this program. So we are talking about developing stories. Make no mistake about that. This evening, we got a notice from one of the council to the leader of the indigenous people, Lord Biafra, that is the barrister Maswell, notifying the public of a change in charges that is changed from 7 count charges to 15 counts. Let's say mathematically over 100% upward review. Very, very important to understand. But I think ordinarily some of us will be panicking, some of us will be raising up hysterical tones. But I think I deem it necessary to come here and we have this behavior, is a behavior or reaction from the federal government, analyzed and dissected as much as we can. One of those things I have never been part and parcel of is undiagnosed hysterical tone. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me because I quite understand behaviors of nation states. I also understand relatively how governments of the earth behave. If you understand how government reacts, then you will understand that what you're seeing the Nigerian government reacting is not new on the surface of the earth. But before that, I want to call our attentions to barely 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, press statement given by the president of Nigeria, on the interview that was granted to him by Channels TV journalist. And one of the questions that was raised, I'm building foundation so that you understand what I am mapping out this time this evening to discuss, so you understand. You know, ordinarily, when you go on social media, you see people jumping here and they are raising hysterical tone. Hey, this. Man, except you don't understand the business we are in. If you understand the journey we are in, you will spend much time gathering information, not some of the empty submissions we are making here and there. It doesn't make sense. The reactions coming from the government is expected. If you predict it, you're not far. Because I will tell you why the government decided to move on that height, so that you understand that nothing new about this behavior. But before that, let us take a brief diagnosis on the interview the president granted to Channels TV. And one of the questions that that were raised for him to respond was the question of Nnamdi Kanu. And pay very attention here. When the issue of Nnamdi Kanu was raised, he made a statement. The question was on political solution. You know, when we talk about political solution, some of us discuss issues from ignorant perspective. And it's really unfortunate that people come and discuss a concept they don't understand ignorantly. It's really disgraceful. And sometimes I think one is not being disrespectful or insulting when he say it also stinking to see when people discuss issues. See, one thing is for you to invoke a terminology. I'm not forgetting what I want to say or the reference I want to point out to us. But one thing is for you to invoke a terminology. Let me educate, or should I say, let me bring to our knowledge or understanding what we call diction or language in politics or international politics. See, one thing is for you to invoke a language. Another thing is for that language to have what we call universal consensus. This is what most people don't understand. Invoking a language or a term is not the problem. The problem is, how does this term or concept or word you are introducing, how does it get universal interpretation? That is where the issue lies. And I think those who are intellectually uplifted, who are watching this program, will definitely understand what I'm talking about. Let me give you an instance for those of us who don't really understand how things work. Because when people hear political, uh, what is it called? Political solution, you see them, they discuss it ignorantly without understanding that it's not even invocation of a term. When you invoke a term, that term you are invoking has to pass another stage. That stage that term has to pass is the stage of what we call consensus interpretation. That thing you call political solution, how does the indigenous people of Biafra interpret it? How does the government interpret it? So you now discovered that even the word political solution is a complex terminology, because to the indigenous people of Biafra, it might mean open the door, allow the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra to walk away because he has no case. That is their own interpretation. I'm giving instance. Now, to the government, it might mean just in the language of the president when he was interviewed. He said, if Nnamdi Kanu behaves himself, there is possibility of political solution. So to them, you can now understand what political solution means to them is what they describe as behaving himself. Now, to the real actor on the ground, Nnamdi Kanu, what does political solution means to him? How does he interpret it? So you now understand when people talk about political solution, is a relative concept among the disagreeing parties. Is a relative concept. It's not an absolute. To party A, it might mean another thing. To party B, it might mean another thing. To party C, it might also mean another thing. So apart from IPOB on the other side and the government on the other side, who have a different interpretation of what political solution means, another people that also have different interpretation to it is the mediators. Those mediating. I'm not talking about negotiators, because our people tend not to understand two different things happening here. The elders you see in the land, led by Amechi and all the rest of them, the Autogerian. When you see those people saying they are meeting the government, remember these people are not negotiators, they are mediators. This is what most of us have not taken time to understand. Who is a mediator? A mediator is somebody, a neutral person, who is trying to settle a dispute between two disputing parties. A mediator is neutral. A mediator neither supports this side or this side. Because I have read, sometimes I read our post and it really shocks me how we are interchanging, how we are misrepresenting the two things. These people who are going meeting the government are not negotiators. Negotiators have the interests of the party at heart. A negotiator goes to market to discuss the interests of the party they are representing. A mediator have no interest to market. A mediator rather is coming to make sure that the two disagreeing parties have a common ground of compromise. So these guys you're seeing, these our elders and others, they are mediators. So because they are mediators, they don't have power to impose condition on the disagreeing party. They cannot impose condition on IPOB, neither can they impose condition on the government. But all they can try to do as a people is to look at what IPOB is saying as the reason for the agitation and what she wants, and what the government is saying as a concern for the agitation, and now look at those two parties and say, okay, why not give us a benefit of that? Can you stop this for a while? Why government, you do this? Let's see how it goes. And let's see if we can reach on a common compromise. That is what mediators do. But most of us, we are seeing these guys as negotiators. And that is where we are getting the whole analysis into paralysis. And it's so sad, it's so unfortunate. So what am I trying to say this evening? Whether you like it or not, this particular issue is already on political phase. It's on political phase because the government that is on a high height, that was on a hyper illusionary height, that they are going to do this, do that, decided to, after a lot of pressures domestically and internationally. And let me say this to some of us. There are things you can never know that is going, who is reaching out to who about this struggle, until one, when Biafra is restored. Two, even when Biafra is restored, there are things you cannot know 30 years after the restoration of Biafra. It is called declassified information. It doesn't matter how you react. These are realities on ground. A lot of information can never be declassified because the parties involved are still alive. Go and check it out. There are a lot of things happening locally, internationally, as regards to Biafra. You can never hear it. You can never have knowledge of it until sometimes even our children might be the ones to read some of the secrets that happen, secret negotiations, secret influences that happened, which even we might not have privy to. So on that note, I want us to focus in analyzing reactions. If you're able to focus on reactions, you will now understand the power quotient of your party, of the opposite party. The problem we have is that we make a whole lot of noise without taking time to sit back and make what we call calculative analysis of the reactions. First of all, pressures domestically and internationally have brought down the government. The government that had the impression that it's all about crush stepped down and began to talk about judiciary. But let me say this to you. Whether executive, whether judiciary or legislator, they are sisters in this game. Make no mistake about that. The judiciary will also consider the interests of the executive, especially in the issue that has to do with Nigeria. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about that. In the case of Nigeria, judiciary always consider the influence and pressures from the executive. But one thing I want us to understand is this. Within a few months ago, a lot of negotiations, a lot of, contacts have been happening. Most of us are not aware of it. A lot of groups have been reaching out. A lot of individuals have also been reaching out. The issue of Biafra, the issue of Nnamdi Kanu especially, is issue that is beyond IPOB as a body alone. Nnamdi Kanu is beyond IPOB as a body. alone, because in course of time he has been transformed from a leader of a people to a leader of a nation and a leader of a set of people all over the world sharing the same ideological divide. Make no mistake about that. So all this why mediators, I told you, not negotiators, because when you hear people talking, especially some of us making commentaries on social media, you now discover that most of us are deeply ignorant. So many of us equate these mediators as if they are negotiators. They are not negotiators. If I'm making you a negotiator, that implies that you are to represent my interest. No negotiator is neutral. Take note of that. If you're negotiating, you are carrying out the interest of the person, you are negotiating on behalf of him. So you're not neutral. But these people who are meeting the government, also meeting the leadership of IPOB, they are mediators. They have no interest to market. They are not there to market the interest of IPOB to government. No. Neither are they there to market the interest of government to us. That is why a mediator does not have the final solution to a conflict. I repeat, no mediator has the final solution to a conflict. Those who have the final solution to that conflict are the conflicting parties. You can bring two parties together as a mediator. You might do a wonderful job in doing what we call good office provision. You can provide a meeting point for them. That is not an assurance that you will get them into reaching compromise. Make no mistake about that. And what you're seeing the government acting today is, as a result, is part of it. Because these mediators have approached government, they have also approached the leadership of IPOB and said, can you toe down on this? Let government also do this. Let's see how to. But the truth is, they are mediators, they are not negotiators. So they can bring the two parties on a round table. No doubt about it. The question remains, the parties in question, is any of them giving out compromise? And that's why most of you don't understand that when dialogue fails, the warring party goes back to the trenches. That is exactly where we are today. For a few months, most of you don't know why the judiciary extended the next sitting for about 2 months. Most of us never knew. The judiciary created opportunity where there might be a time for these conflicting parties to have a compromise, to discuss. What the judiciary did, Tanko did, yes, Bintaya coming to say did, was to give time, push time, so that these two parties, let's see within the 2 months, if they can have a grant for compromise. But the truth is this, both the Ohanese delegates, both the Nzuko Monna delegates, and every other local and international interest, or not interest, mediating forces, have a limit at which they can get. The limit at which they can get is to get these people, the conflicting parties, on the table and said to this party, this is what this man said he wants, and to this person, this is what the other party say he wants. Now, when no party is ready for compromise, what happens? The two parties can go back to trenches, a shooting point. Because most of us don't understand how these things work, and that's why we get misguided by a kind of weak and baseless information. So what you see the federal government did is federal government have been unable to convince, to market her interest to Nnamdi Kanu, because no matter what you mediate, it takes Nnamdi Kanu's final endorsement to give weight to whatever your mediation is all about. So what we are seeing today is a failed mediation. Take that from me. What we are seeing today is a failed mediation. The two parties in question have not shifted grounds. The leader of IPOB has not shifted ground. The federal government herself have not shifted ground. So what happens? The two parties have to go back to shooting point, the trenches. You see what government did? They fine-tuned the charges from 7 count charges to 15. That is the bullet they can release to mount up additional pressure. Then it lies at the discretion of the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra to also decide the appropriate response and equitable force to marshal out. That is just the way it is. Because mediation has failed, the table discussions have failed, the two parties have to go back to trenches. Go and research. It is normal. So what you're seeing them is a kind of trying to speed up, is a kind of, let me give you a clear instance here for those of us who might want to learn. You see, the journey we are requires a lot of mental energies. I tell you the truth. Because when you are bereft of basic things you need to know, then you will understand that this is not a child's game. It's never game for toddlers or feeble-minded fellows. It's not a game for, because it's a serious business. This is a journey of self-determination. You are going to recreate from map. That is what the journey is all about. You're going to remake from map point to names of streets of an existing entity. So it's not a joke. That's why when I see so many of us, coming with a very passive and floating knowledge, I marvel. I say, these people, they don't understand. So what has happened? There are things your curiosity can never fetch for you. One of those things your curiosity can never fetch for you is there are a lot of secret meetings that keeps going even as we are discussing. Some of them we will be privy to know. Some of them we will know it after Biafra is restored. It's called declassified information. Because some individuals who went into that meeting have to take the oath of non-disclosure for you to understand the seriousness of what we're talking about. They have to take the oath of non-disclosure. So many of them might decide to write in a book. When they are aging, they have to pour out what they saw on books, so that selected, serious-minded fellows can go and know about it. So what are we talking about? What you see the government telling us, those who have hairs, is that mediation process failed. It collapsed. So when you see them are joining, the judiciary are joined through the request of the executive. You could hear when the last court sitting, they asked everybody to step out, and the DSS officer was discussing with Nnamdi Kanu and the judge. It was at that point they were telling the judiciary, extend this to 6 months. Let's see what we can make out of it. If we can have a common political ground to solve issue. And I said this earlier, most of us don't understand. You see them, they write, political solution has failed. Even when they are ignorant of the concept. And that's why I started by explaining to us that terminology is relatively interpreted. What political solution means to Asorok is different from what it means to leadership of the movement. It can only mean universally. It can only have an absolute meaning when, after mediation, the two parties arrive on compromise. At that point, we cannot have what we call a universal or an absolute definition of the concept of political solution. But at this moment, political solution is not bad, because what political solution means to the leadership of IPOB is not bad. What it means to the federal government might be bad to the leadership of IPOB. So everyone interprets the concept as he or she understands. So what are we trying to say? We are at the point that mediation was activated. It's on record. Those historians are taking record of all various developments. Mediation was activated and it failed. It failed owing to the fact that the two parties could not reach a compromise. But I want you to understand how the world see the whole thing. For those of you who are not grounded in international politics and diplomacy, see, the federal government has no case to answer. Why? Anytime, let me open our eyes to something. Anytime a state actor, which is governments are state actors, anytime state actors decide to engage politically to non-state actors, whatever that state actor tag that non-state actor is irrelevant. It is non-powerful, is weightless. I'm going to explain. That is why no state actor, listen and listen very attentively, no state actor wants to engage non-state actor or opposing non-state actor at all costs. They avoid it. Why do they avoid it? They avoid it because any day you activate the process of engagement with opposing non-state actor, IPOB is a non-state actor, whatever you tag that non-state actor is useless and irrelevant. Let me give you an instance. Qatar, that is Doha, the capital is Doha. When Americans and the Taliban were fighting seriously, what Qatar did, Qatar became a mediating state actor or a mediating party. And what did Qatar say? Qatar said, okay, both America negotiators and the Taliban negotiators, let all of you fly down to Doha and see if we can find a common ground over this conflict. Taliban delegates traveled to Doha. In fact, Taliban opened office in Doha, office of contact in Doha. And American delegates were flying in. Do you know what happened? Because America activated the process of engagement, political engagement with Taliban, America indirectly legitimatized, legalized Taliban as a conventional state actor, not as a terrorist organization. And because America have engaged Taliban in Doha, many countries began to secretly also engage Taliban. What am I trying to say? Nigerian government absolutely has no case because she even engages with IPOB secretly. And her engagement with IPOB is the reason why a lot of politicians began to have the boldness to even talk about IPOB and Biafra before the government. People should understand, we are talking about technical issues here. Any day a state actor is pressured into engaging a non-state actor, technically and indirectly, he has activated the process of legitimization of that non-state actor. And that is exactly the situations of things about IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu. Forget the paperwork you're seeing. It can be 1 billion count charges. The truth remains that Nigerian government delegates are also in contact, trying to negotiate, trying to discuss, trying to be on the same table with the same person they are giving all these hyper charges. So the hyper charges they are giving, they are marshalling out, is as a result of failure in mediation, failure in negotiation. Because negotiation failed, table time collapsed. Everybody is going back to trenches. So what you're going to see within few months is more pressures. Government will put up more pressure to see how to force IPOB to reach a compromise. And of course, IPOB will also put her own pressure. It's coming. But if we look at time at which we are, so many of us don't understand this. That's why I take it as a responsibility to explain to us. Because the truth remains, the government is under severe pressure to activate the process of political solution. She's facing a domestic pressure on that. She's also facing international pressure on that. Because they have seen what happened in Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, the Ethiopian central government thought it was going to be war. You saw the Western nation mounted a severe pressure on Ethiopian government. And today, you can see compromises are reached between the Tigray and the Ethiopian government. And Nigerian government is also watching and understanding that development. So the domestic and international pressures are ongoing. No doubt about it. This is not a child's play. They are ongoing. But because in the arrogancy of the government believes that IPOB should not measure equilibrium with them. That is the mentality. We are talking about pure social science so that you understand the nature. You know, countries are organic. They are reactive. When you talk about countries, you're not talking about inanimates. You're talking about animates that can react, that can respond, and of course, that have all the features needed in human behavior. So, because there is this, the process of engagement is already activated. But in the arrogancy of the government believes that IPOB should be on the table with them as a sub-unit to her, not an equal player or an actor. So what that implies is that the handlers of the government are looking at that anytime they approach the table with IPOB to discuss, they should be dishing out instruction and IPOB will be obeying. On the contrary, IPOB also is trying to tell the government that we are representing a people. So just the way you are representing Nigerians, we are representing a Biafran's interest. So you cannot dish out your interest and expect us to run by it. First of all, you have to see us as an equal actors. It's a very complex issue. Sometimes it's laughable, it's enjoyable. Things that happen behind the camera is really sometimes funny. So there is a struggle among the two parties. One trying to say to other, you are a subunit. I am not going to discuss with you as an equal actor. You can now understand where the problem is currently. You can now understand the psychological warfare at which things are. You know, something happened, and I think it should be better we also look into it briefly before I go to the last thing, then we come to the end of this evening program. Something happened, and IPOB called off the boycott of Nnamdi election. And people were making a whole lot of noise, and I laugh. Now, there's what we call precondition for discussion. There is what we call precondition for discussion. Pre is, I think it should be surface or office. I've forgotten my English studies anyway. So it pre means before. Now there's what we call precondition of discussion. You held a strong ground, you are holding something, and somebody's okay. Can you give it up? Then this is what I'm going to give it up. These are so many things that happened behind that most of us don't even know. And the government is saying to you, okay, before we activate the process of mediation, before I even accept your mediation, can you tell these people to let this activity take place? And those mediating are saying to you, okay, these people are going to activate the process of sitting down on the same table. And I laugh at most of us also because we don't understand the importance of every single thing happening. Winning does not mean the last part of the winning. There are things you do that takes you to the last stage of winning. There are things you do that take you to the last point of. Those things you're doing might be too inimical. They might be too, unobvious. Permit that language. They might be too inconsequential, but they are important. As far as politics and international relations are concerned, they are very important. Take, for instance, I told you earlier that it took Taliban many years and many contacts to get America on the table. And most of you don't understand what that means to Taliban. Taliban understand that any day they are sitting on the same table with United States to discuss, technically America has activated the process of legitimatization, moving them from the bad image representation as a terrorist group to responsible group. And they achieved that through the help of Qatar. Qatar provided office for them in Doha, and Talibans were sitting down with the Americans. And how do you think the world will interpret that? That means America, these people you are calling evil, are not even evil. And what did that achieve for Taliban? It achieved a process of a lot of countries secretly engaging with them. Hence, America have started engaging with them. That means they are what also engaging. America, you cannot stop us to engage to people you are engaging. And that's exactly what we are also experiencing today. For the fact that the federal government have started the process of discussing with type people, that is what is giving a lot of coward and low boss Igbo politicians to be boldly talking about Biafra. Because they have the means of various meetings that have been going on. So the government that is sitting down with alleged terrorists cannot also stop them from speaking concerning these people. And you might not understand the importance of it. You might not understand the relevancy of that because most of us have a federalist mindset. Federalist mindset. They believe everything will just immediately back because you don't understand how the world is built, how the world is structured. So what we are seeing today is because negotiation failed, mediation failed, and the two parties have run back to their trenches. Nigeria has run back to her trenches, and there is no weapon she has to unleash than the judicial weapon. Why? Do you know why? She has to unleash the judicial weapon because she's under international pressure to obey legal processes. And you should ask yourself, why didn't they review the charges for months? They had up to 2 months. The 2 months they had was the time they begged the judiciary to allow them to see if they can get Nnamdi Kanu, because he's the last signatory to whatever you discussed with the federal government, no matter how nice it is. If he refuses it, which I believe they have been serving him with different resolutions, and he's the last person to approve whether it is healthy to be accepted or not. You can discuss extensively. You can discuss excellently. You can discuss professionally. If it does not endorse it, federal government will not take that communique or resolution as a serious one. And all these times, I personally believe series of resolutions have been served to him. He has been receiving series of resolutions. And for the fact they are not healthy for the interest and generality of the Biafran people, he refused to back down. And you can see the government in protest went and start coupling additional 8 charges. Very laughable. But let me say this before we come to the end of this program. Like I told us, it's a serious business. It's a serious journey. It's beyond social media noise making. It's a journey that requires more of thinking than talking. We have spent a whole lot of time talking because we needed to talk that time. We needed to get attentions. We needed to win the hearts of the people. That has been gotten. And that's why leadership is spending much of her time in thinking, not talking. The time of talking was done neatly, and the result of talking are abound. Even the blind can see it. But this is the time of thinking and technical application of wisdom. If you miscalculate, you see the result. So what am I saying? Now, the future is for us. The government of the day understands that time is no longer on their side. Believe you me or not. There are a lot of things that are going to build more pressures for the country. The economy, shit, light has gone off. Okay, I'm almost rounding up anyway. The economy is in a bad shape. Insecurity is alarming. And as I speak to you, political crisis is now destroying APC. Cabas are saying let them shift their convention. The governors sat down, the APC governors just came out from meeting last night and said it must hold on February, next month. Crisis is ravaging. There is a vicious circle crisis. And I believe IPOB is on the advantage as far as the future is concerned. Why do I say that? The government is going to face severe problem, and which she needs to resolve Biafran crisis and IPOB issue if she wants the entire South to be stabilized. It's as simple as that. Those who understand what I'm talking about understand. So there is a multiple problem, and I believe no responsible government would want to add up to the multiple problem currently existing. Meanwhile, this generator, so that you don't think light has improved so far. Good. So what were we saying in nutshell? We'll be coming to be analyzing, we'll be coming to be putting things right for us. But we should understand that this is a journey for seriousness. Forget the charges. The charges is just bullet from trenches. What we had, most of you don't understand, what we had from the last case sitting till now is what we call silent night. Most of you sing that song, Silent Night, Holy Night. You don't know the origin of that night. That song was written as a result of what happened between the Allied powers during the Second World War. 24th night, at the eve of Xmas, the warring powers say, okay, please, nobody should be shooting. Let there be silent on every trenches. The central powers never shot. The Allies' power never shot also. And there was silent for people to observe Christmas. So the warring powers kept silent. They observed Christmas, observed Boxing Day, and went back to trenches. So what we observed a few days is a silent night, and mediations were going. But what we saw today, the addition of charges, shows to us that mediation has failed. And the question remains, when mediation does the failure of one mediation, the end of mediation? The answer is absolutely no. When people fail to reach on compromise, what happens is that they go back again, looking at things that pose as impediment. They look at things that led them not to achieve a win-win. They review it. What is most important here is that Nnamdi Kanu and Biafra is a national discourse. He never achieved that by running away from pains. In fact, the pains he accepted got Biafra to be mainstreamed. Got Biafra to be mainstreamed, to be nationalized, to be made a discourse. So forget all this thing you're saying. The federal government will also go back on her trench to review what she presented on the table. The leadership of IPOB and the experts handling IPOB's interest formulation will also go back and look at better strategy to also advance more. So that is how it is. It's natural. It's a phenomenon. And guess what? At the end, forget the whole thing you're saying. At the end, the government that seemed to be arrogant will bring down her feather. Because if you analyze the future, you find out that IPOB is advantageous as far as time is concerned in the whole thing we are talking about. So we come to the end of this evening program, and I want you, remember tomorrow is a sit at home. We need to pray for the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, the media team, the legal team, every single person working assiduously for the survival of this struggle needs our prayer, and we must maintain our ground. And the Lord will see us through in all we do. From here, I want to say good night and do enjoy yourself.
No condition is permanent. If you have been chosen by God to be great, surely okay. Unavugo na muna chimseje nakalaka mkamune melu nchimwe onye yemwe go yemwe mwekulo kalala. I believe in future or the Nilu, even the Nilu, the Nilu. My brother, have faith in God. Maganonya dendo ya batelu. Ise bulan, biko ya bachuku. Ogonogondo na luisike. Onya dendo mwelo lilanya. Nemesiano gadim. Onye ọbụla ga-enwe akụkọ ọ ga-akọ ma ọ bụ na ọ kpata ego. Onye natala afụfụ wee kpata ego ọ dị ama etu esi eme ego. Emekwana na mmadụ na-anọ n'ogwe wee sị na ọma mkpatanwu ego maka na onwe nwere aka ọrụ. Ụwa mmụọ onye nwechie onye ifuru n'ogwe